Hello, my twisted friends. I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. If you are new here, hi, my name is Shannon Page, and I would like to welcome you to Tuesday's Twisted Tales. Now, if you are interested and intrigued by true crime like I am, well, then I'd suggest hitting that like and subscribe button so you can join me on Tuesdays for another Twisted Tale. Well, hey guys, welcome back. What a crazy week. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving and are getting all ready for the big event. The main event is on its way. So, yeah, can't believe it's here already. But anyhow, today's Twisted Tale is of Mack Ray Edwards. Maybe you've heard of him. I honestly hadn't, so it was kind of interesting to dig into something I wasn't real familiar with. But anyway, he's another bad guy. That's why we're here. It's not going to be as rough on me or you probably as last week's episode with Dean Coral. So that's good for my psyche. Anyhow, let's get this twisted tale started. All right. So, Mack Ray Edwards, he was born October 17th, 1918 in Montgomery County, there in Arkansas. And he moved to Los Angeles, California in 1941. And in 1942, he would join the United States Army Corps of Engineers, where he trained to be a heavy equipment operator and served as a combat engineer. He would marry his sweetheart, Mary Howell, in 1946, and the couple would live pretty much all over the Los Angeles area between 1950 and 1957. Now, sometime in the 50s, Mack joined the International Union of Operating Engineers, or IUOE, as it was called. Again, he's operating heavy equipment and was contracted to work for the California Department of Transportation, known as Caltrans. Now, with this assignment, he would do, freeway construction. He was driving a backhoe and other heavy equipment, either building the freeways from the ground up or repairing those that were somehow damaged. Now, in the 60s, the couples, they moved to Ralston Ave in Sylar, Los Angeles, and the two adopted 2 children. Now, it's said that between the years of 1953 and 1956, that Mack had assaulted and murdered 3 young children, and he would do the same again. Like, he took a little 12-year break, and then he did it again from 1968 to 1969, and he went on to kill, 3 more. So, I don't know what he was doing in that 12 years, but apparently took a little break. Now, he would later say that the crimes were motivated by a, quote, desire for sex, end quote. What the hell? I mean, he couldn't hit his wife up or something. Like, the hell's the attraction to little kids? I don't get it. But anyhow, that's what he said. So, yeah, it's not good. It's never good. We're here, and it's not good. So, how did we catch this guy? Well, we didn't. He turned himself in. He did this on March 6, 1970, after 3 sisters that he had kidnapped escaped. Yeah. So 2 of the kids, they actually run away, and the 3rd one, he just kind of let go. He figured that the kids could identify him, right? So he just walked himself into the police station there in Pasadena Valley with a loaded gun, set that down on the desk there in front of the cop, and just started talking. That's new. Like, we don't see that here very often, do we? In his confession, he told Sergeant George Rock how his conscience had been bothering him. And they're putting the handcuffs on him, and he further states that he couldn't eat or sleep anything, saying, quote, I have a guilt complex. I couldn't eat, and I couldn't sleep. And it was beginning to affect my work, I'm a heavy equipment operator. That long grader that I'm using, it costs a lot of money, $200,000. I might wreck it or turn it over or hurt someone, end quote. What the hell? What? So he's worried about the equipment hurting people, but he's running around killing kids. What? Yeah, anyway. What do you do with this guy? Well, when asked about the 3 sisters that, got away, he said, quote, I'm glad that they got away, because otherwise it would have been 9 murders instead of 6, end quote. This dude, he's already bugging me a little bit. Well, Edwards, he would start his confession with a young girl named Stella Nolan. Now, she was just 8 years old, and she was at a little flea market there in Norwalk, and she's waiting in a refreshment stand, and he takes her. This would be on June 20th, 1953. I mean, she just like simply vanished, right? So Edwards, he confessed to kidnapping her, taking her then to his home in Azusa, California, where he assaulted her. He then drove her to the Angeles forest, strangled her, and threw her small body over a bridge. I mean, this dude, the fuck. Yeah, well, he said that the next day, he went back to the area to kind of check on things, I guess. And he was, quote, surprised, end quote, to find her about 100 yards from where he had left her, sitting up, alive. But she was unable to speak or move. I mean, what the fuck? Yeah, so what does he do? Well, he takes out a knife and he stabbed her to death. He then buried her 8 feet under an embankment near the Santa Ana freeway. What the hell? Yeah. Thought we were getting a little break. We're not. No. He would go on to confess that on November 26, 1968, that he broke into a Sylar home looking to kidnap a little 13-year-old girl, that she lived there. Okay, so he breaks into this house, he's going to kidnap her. This is his plan. Well, she isn't home, but her 16-year-old brother, Gary, he's home. And sadly, Edwards, shot him to death once he told him that his sister wasn't home. This dude's a douchebag. Now, on May 16th, 1969, 13-year-old Donald Allen Todd, he vanished after last being seen leaving the school grounds. He and another boy apparently had gotten into some kind of fight, so they were both being kicked out of school for the day and sent home early, okay? Now, Don, he would never make it home. Edwards, he picked him up, assaulted him, then shot him with a .22 caliber gun. His body was found that same year by 2 kids. I guess these kids are running around playing and they come across this poor young man, Don's body. So, to make matters worse, Don, he was just a mile from his home. So this dude is taking these kids in broad damn daylight, and nobody's seeing anything, apparently. And this is the time when women were at home, they were housewives. There wasn't a whole lot of women in the 50s that were out in the working force just yet. They were still pretty much housewives, and nobody is seeing these things. Kind of makes you wonder if maybe Edward knew them somehow, or did something to make them not be afraid, because it's just odd that it's broad daylight in packed places. I mean, a flea market, that kind of stuff. So anyway, Edwards, he confessed to the 3 other murders, but because the police, that they weren't able to ever locate the bodies, Edwards wouldn't be charged with these last 3 murders. Now, the first 2 of these 3 are 13-year-old Donald Lee Baker and his friend Brenda Jo Howe. She's just 11 years old. Now, these 2 kids, they're riding their bikes to the San Gabriel Canyon area, and they just vanished. This is on August 6, 1956. Now, a few days later, Don's jacket and Brenda's bike were found near Morris Dam. Don's bike would be found about a month later. Neither of the kids would ever be seen again, and authorities believe that they had just run away from home. I mean, police back in the day, I swear, they thought that every missing kid was a runaway. Like, there couldn't possibly be any foul play, like, ever, I swear. Now, Brenda, she is actually Edward's sister-in-law, this piece of shit. And Don, he was his neighbor. I mean, the fuck? He would, lead the police to where he had dumped their bodies, but after searching the area, no bodies were found. When the police asked him about these 2 victims, Edward said, quote, "I paid Don $7 to procure Brenda by convincing her to go on a bike ride with him. I followed them in my truck. Once they were in a secluded area, I separated the 2 of them, and I slit both their throats," end quote. The hell? Now, he doesn't mention any assault on these 2 in this confession that he gives, but it's a pretty safe bet that that likely happened. And then, just slit their throats. I mean, whether he assaulted them or not, it's awful either way. But because we have us a sexual predator, I think it's a pretty safe bet that, that happened. Anyhow. Now, the third in this trio is Roger Madison, just 15 years old. And on December 16th, 1968, Roger got into an argument with his dad about smoking. So, he and Dad get into some kind of scuffle over this, and he just gets on his motorcycle and he rides off, never to be seen again. Now, his parents thought that he actually had run away from home due to the argument, right? Well, Edwards was actually friends with the Madison family. Roger, he went to school with Edwards' son. So the parents of these two boys, they would oftentimes get together and were regular visitors at one another's homes. So when Edward confessed to Roger's murder, he said, quote, "I lured him into an orange grove and tricked him into being tied up as a part of the game," end quote. Like, what the hell? What kind of game requires being tied up anyway? I mean, what? Anyhow, he then stabs him to death and buried his body with a bulldozer in a compaction hole under California State Route 23 in Thousand Oaks, which was under construction at the time, and Edwards was working at the site. Later in 2008, authorities, they took 4 cadaver dogs out to the site. All 4 dogs they did hit in the same area, but unfortunately Roger's remains are still not found. Now, after 3 bodies were recovered, Edwards pled guilty to 3 counts of kidnapping and 3 counts of murder. However, during his preliminary hearing on March 17, 1970, when he pled guilty again, the judge actually wouldn't accept his plea. Edwards, he shouted out to the courts, quote, "Guilty, I'm guilty," end quote. So his attorney asked the judge if he could submit an innocent plea, and Edwards then yelled out, quote, "I don't need a lawyer, I am guilty," end quote. The trial was scheduled to start May 6, but was delayed due to the multiple times that Edwards would try to take his own life. The first attempt was on March 30th. He had slashed his stomach in this event with a razor blade or something. And on May 7th, he overdosed on tranquilizers. What the hell? Where did he even get tranquilizers from anyways? And how did he get enough of them to try to, take his life and overdose on this shit? Anyway, after these 2 delays, the trial would begin on May 17th, 1970. Now, Deputy District Attorney David Kenner, I believe, said to the jury, quote, "If ever there was a case that cried out for the imposition of the death penalty, this is the case. This defendant has forfeited whatever right a person has to live in this society," end quote. Edwards agreed. This guy, he just shocks me. Edward, he agrees to this, and he requested the death penalty on himself, indicating that he wanted to pay the ultimate price for his crimes and that he was willing to trade places with the next man in line for the gas chamber. The hell, this dude. Now, Edwards, he would go on to say, quote, "My attorney got a bit mixed up and pleaded for my life. I want the chair. That's what I've always wanted. I told them when I went into the police station, but they didn't say that in court. This was sadistic to bring these parents and other witnesses down here and put them through this trial," end quote. Well, I mean, he's not wrong. Really. Why waste the taxpayers' money, too? But whatever. Fair trial and all. So, sentencing was scheduled for June 5th, 1970, and he was sentenced to death in a gas chamber. He was then transferred to San Quentin State Prison on June 11th, 1970, where he occupied a cell, only 1 cell away from Charles Manson. Kind of interesting. Now, on October 30th, 1971, Edwards, he would end up taking his own life by hanging himself with a cord that it was, there for his television. So this piece of shit took the easy way out for sure. Now, Edwards is believed to have killed several more. I mean, there was that 12-year gap, right? Well, in that 12 years, several kids, they went missing. And so, at one point, Edwards had told a jailhouse guard and his cellmate that he had actually killed between 18 and 22. Well, of course, this is reported, and when the courts asked Edwards about it, he firmly said, quote, 6 is all there is, just 6, end quote. Because I guess that's good. It's better than 18 or 22, though, so, He would also say there was just 6 when he was interviewed by the LA Times in 1970. Edwards told another guard that he would not repeat his jailhouse confession of killing more because, quote, authorities had said bad things about me in court, end quote. What the hell? Nevertheless, the authorities would look close at any child that had disappeared in the 12-year gap, okay? Now, the first of those was Thomas Bowman, just 8 years old. He disappeared on March 23rd, 1957. Now, this boy was actually with his family on a hike. When they got close to the car, he told his family that he was going to run ahead to the car, which he did. But when the family got to the car, the boy was nowhere to be found. Now, sometime later, Edwards' wife, she would bring in a letter to police that he had written to her, okay? And in this letter, he writes, quote, I was going to add one more, and that was the Tommy Bowman boy that disappeared in Pasadena, but I felt I would really make a mess of that one, so I left him out of it, end quote. Yeah. Well, Edwards' employer at the time was Kirsch Construction, and the equipment yard was less than a mile from where Tommy was last seen. His body, though, has never been found. Now, next to fall under suspicion is a 6-year-old Bruce Kerman. On July 12th, 1960, now this boy, he was out with his YMCA group camping. There was like 80 other kids and adults on this camp, so it's not small. There's a lot of people. Now, he and 2 friends, they were playing about 300 yards from the rest of the campgoers when he got separated from his 2 buddies. Now, the camp counselors, they quickly realized that Bruce was missing and got a search together real quick. But they came up with nothing. I mean, the police were involved in this as well, and nothing. Now, the area that they were camping in was pretty rough territory with a lot of high cliffs, and the authorities at the time believed that maybe he had fallen to his death, even though there was never any signs of this and his body was never found. Now, years later, authorities, believed that maybe Edwards actually got this boy and killed him. And maybe he did. Now, another young girl, Karen Tompkins, just 11 years old, was last seen on August 18th, 1961, in Torrance, California. Now, she and her little brother, they were actually attending a summer arts and crafts class at their elementary school, so, like, summer activities for kids to do with, working parents, that kind of thing. So, her and her brother, they go to this little place to do a craft class, okay? And their dog apparently follows them to this class. So Karen's brother, he decided to walk the dog back home before, the class was over. Karen stayed to finish her project, and teachers and other children had seen Karen leave at 5:30 p.m., which was when the class ended, okay? And she had taken with her the 2 little covered wagon projects that her and her brother had. She had those up under her arms. So, 5:30, she packed up the stuff that they had done, and she starts walking home. Now, a friend did walk beside her for part of that 4-block walk when they, separated, each going their separate directions to their homes. But Karen, she never made it to her house. And by 6 p.m., the police were notified, but little Karen has never been found still. So that one they acted pretty quickly on, right? He left at 5:30. By 6 p.m., police are called and they're searching. So they did act really quickly on that one. So hats off, California. Somebody's doing something. Dorothy Brown, age 11, she vanished on July 2nd, 1962. She was last seen riding her bike to get a soda from a nearby vending machine. About 8:30 p.m., her father went looking for her and found her bike parked on its kickstand just 1 block from their home. So her father, too, phones the police. The next morning, a little girl found a dress stuffed in a beer can on a tin can beach. The girl took the dress home, and her mother actually washed it like, it was a cute little dress. But once the news was heard about Dorothy being missing, they turned the dress over to the police, letting them know that they had found it in a can on Tin Can Beach. So the police, they would search the area and found Dorothy's pink hairband that was also found in a beer can on the beach there. About noon of the same day, Dorothy's little nude body was found by 2 skin divers floating in about 25 feet of water there in a kelp bed. and this was about 150 yards offshore. She'd been in the water for about 6 to 8 hours, as best they could tell, and police thought that maybe she knew her abductor and may have gotten into the boat with him willingly. She had been assaulted and then drowned. Now, the police, they did think that the murders of Karen might be connected to our other young victim. And so they were starting to think, maybe we've got something here, because they were both assaulted. They were both taken in broad daylight. Outside of that, they didn't have anything else to go on, but they did feel like the two might be connected. Now, next in the case is Ramona Price. She is just 7 years old. On September 11th, 1961, around 11 a.m., she told her father that she was going to walk to their new home. So they were in the process of moving, and the new house was, just around the corner kind of thing. She was never seen again. This was reported again right away, and tracking dogs were brought in. Now, the dogs, they did track her scent for about 2 miles down Modoc Road near the 101 freeway, which was under construction at the time. Now, a witness did describe a girl that matched Ramona's description getting into a faded blue 1953 or 1954 Plymouth. And Edwards, well, he was known to drive Plymouths. Now, a sketch was done on the driver that the witness saw, and it matched pretty damn good to Edwards. Now, on June 15th, 2011, the Santa Barbara Police Department announced plans to search for Ramona's remains in an area close to the 101 freeway. And that freeway was under construction when she came up missing. So the police, they didn't say what evidence they had to lead them to believe that she might be buried there. But again, they searched, they bring in the dogs make the hit, but they also came up empty. Her remains were not found. So twice we have the dogs hitting, and twice no recovery of bodies. So it's pretty sad. And that, guys, is about it on this one. I mean, there isn't a lot of detail in the file. No real backstory on this guy. Nothing on his childhood or early years to know if he had any issues indicating, what was to come, right? So, I don't know. I don't know what made this dude tick. Couldn't tell you. But I was also hoping to find, a little more information on the marriage, too. Because, were there problems in the marriage? Is that what was going on with him and his wife? I mean, all we know is that they were married and had two adopted children together. His wife didn't seem real shocked when she received that letter about the little Bowman boy. She just kind of walks the letter into the station, and that's kind of it. So, I mean, it's kind of weird. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. But that, my twisted friends, is the tale of Mack Ray Edwards. What do you think? I mean, do we have other murders to account for with this dude? I think yes. Especially with him, writing that letter to his wife about the Bowman boy. So, yeah. Anyhow, I don't know. But I'd like to know what y'all think. So, let me know what you think about the case. Did he have more victims? Should they continue the search and keep looking? I vote yes. Also, let me know who you would like to see covered in future episodes. And please be safe out there, guys. Take care of yourselves. For crying out loud, these people didn't just disappear out of existence. We still got lots of them running around, unfortunately. So be careful. Again, let me know who you'd like to hear about in future episodes. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button to join me on Tuesdays for another Twisted Tale. Y'all take care now, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.